Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another humdinging edition of Therapeutic Thursday. My name, as you may know by now, is John Quick. I'm a fellow aortic survivor, having suffered now 18 years ago a type A dissection, which led to emergency open heart surgery, fitting of a prosthesis in part of the aorta and aortic mechanical valve. And then subsequent to that, I had a type B dissection, which goes all the way down into the bifurcation into my legs, which I've been also living with and using defensive medication for the last 18 years. And as I've explained many times now, but I'm always asked to repeat this, one of the things that happened in these life-changing moments, which I think we can all agree they are, is I did a number of things of kind of reassessing my life, partly to do with wanting to get perhaps more in touch with myself, but also kind of needs must. And I'd always been very interested in psychology, and I started doing more training courses, getting qualifications, and then beginning to work in the voluntary sector and so forth. So that's the evolution of Aortic Therapeutic Thursday. I've got to remember to ask you to like and subscribe, haven't I, Joshua? Done that now. And what we're starting to do now is bring guests onto the show. And I'm delighted to say that joining me today, we have Molly Thomas, who is an aortic survivor, who I think has a very similar condition to what I have. So first of all, welcome aboard, Molly.
Thank you
Nice
very
to have
much.
you with us. Thank you for offering yourself up for this slaughter. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, just starting off my day. Only about 9 o'clock here in San Diego, and just getting started. So it's good to see your smiley face, and hello to Joshua. And I'm happy that you had me on today.
That's great. So am I correct when I say that we have similar conditions?
Almost identical, yes. When I heard your story and talked to you a little bit about it, I realized that we were almost identical. And it was nice to know that you were 18 years out, and so you gave me a lot of hope and encouragement, things to look for, seeing how well you've done for 18 years, because I am on such a similar, and everyone's different with this, but you and I were very, very close, very similar in our aortic dissection event.
Okay.
So with me, if you want,
go ahead. Yeah, I imagine now we'd go on to just a little bit about, the incident itself, how it happened, whether it came completely out of the blue or whether you had some warning. We can begin with that if you're comfortable to do that.
Absolutely. It's a story that I can now tell well, because I can now do it without crying, for one, but I've gotten it down to definitely under 5 minutes. It used to go on forever because there's so much to experience and you relive it. But yeah, pretty much the worst day of my life. My situation happened 4 years ago, come April 1st. And while it was out of the blue, it wasn't completely, well, it still was unexpected also, but I did have a known aneurysm, aortic aneurysm, which in itself was a very big surprise to find out one day visiting a cardiologist office, trying to figure out if I had high blood pressure or not, and if I should take medicine. And I will say, when he said, yes, I needed medicine, I just don't take medicine. I'm pretty healthy. I said, well, I'm reluctant to take heart medicine. So is there any tests that you could do and so he gave me the gamut, stress test, treadmill, echo. I may have had a CT. I had all those tests, and it was, I can't remember, I won't go into that, but it was eventually determined that I did have a known aneurysm that they were going to keep an eye on, watch and wait. So I
So
did know I
just a question there, given that enemy number one, as we understand it, is high blood pressure for this condition, for living with this condition afterwards. So just to basically repeat the kind of biological physics of it, high blood pressure causes pressure on the aortic walls, both with the outbeat of the heart, and then when it comes back, it maybe doesn't come back in as far as it should. Um, so, what what led you down that path of thinking you might have high blood pressure?
just a primary care appointment, a general physician
Okay,
appointment.
yeah.
It had been creeping up. I do have a history of high blood pressure in my family, but it was inching up, and it just I think that one day it had gotten to a point where she said, "No more. We're going to do something about this." So,
Hmm.
and that was about a year and a half before my dissection. So I didn't have long to watch and wait. So that was awful to even have to take a pill for heart medicine or heart blood pressure. But I did it, and I did it diligently. So I did everything, and I actually changed my diet, which wasn't bad anyway. And I stepped up the exercise. COVID hit thereafter, so I had a lot of time to, do the online on the TV Peloton type stuff. And so yeah, I was super fit. Actually, going into this whole event, I was super fit, probably the most fit I had been in years, actually.
So,
Um,
so the being diagnosed like that motivated you? Yeah.
Yes, and
Mm,
and COVID. COVID took
mm.
me out of work for a little bit, and, yeah, gotta find something to do, so I go on 15, 20-mile bike rides and walk for hours, and so it was a good time for me exercise-wise, for sure.
Yeah.
So, so just to I won't, there's such a story to the backstory to this, but what ended up happening was it got to a point where I got I was even more of an advocate for myself, unnaturally so, because like Karen mentioned before, just listen to the doctors and do what they say, and you don't want to
Mm.
disturb and ask and poke and prod and be the hypochondriac. So I just did, but I got to the point where no, this is my heart, and this is a situation. I know what an aneurysm is. Um, I didn't know the ramifications of it until one day I went to an opinion with a surgeon, and he told me off the cuff, "Look, you don't want to be in the middle of the Pacific in the middle of the night and have an aortic dissection happen to you." I'm like, "What's that?"
So he's
So
commenting on your job then, in
my
relation.
job as a flight attendant, and
Right.
typically long haul international. So yeah, I'm up in the air for a
Mm.
good 15 plus hours
Yeah.
or years. Sometimes it feels like years. Um, but he said it kind of off the cuff, and I didn't. And he also said, well, this condition could lend itself to, you know, it's typically in over 60, 70-year-old men, overweight, diabetic, kind of the typical stuff. And
Mm.
I just filed that away. He said, if it were to happen, um, you need to be at a hospital within 5 minutes or 5 miles. I can't remember what he said, but because you don't need to be on an airplane. That won't be good. It's a killer. I was like, oh. And so I left there. And then anyway, subsequently, I talked to another doctor I was referred to, a surgeon up at Stanford, and I got busy with it. And I just started asking questions. But no, and one of the people said, "You're going to be 80 before you need to worry about this aneurysm." I'll never forget that, because I thought, oh, good, I'm good.
So straight away there we can see the kind of the different opinions coming in, which can be confusing.
Different opinions coming in, and looking what I know now with being involved here and in this community, I can look back and think, I wonder if they were looking at me age, lifestyle, and physical condition, and they just missed it. They just didn't focus harder on me or something. I'm not sure, but it really
Mm.
shouldn't have happened. We all know
You
watching.
mean you're talking there about, okay, so you had the aneurysm, but they didn't pick up that there was probably already some kind of a dissection.
No, I'm picking up that they maybe thought that this aneurysm was just don't worry about it. She's young, she's healthy,
Okay.
she's healthy
mm,
lifestyle. I don't know, but I know that people who are in watch and wait are really watched and wait, they really are watched after. And uh, again, I don't want to go into it, but there were some CTs that were without, there's things that weren't done that I know now should have been done to
mm.
monitor the situation. But that's all in the past. Yes, I was a little grumpy about it in the first year or so, but um, what can you do about it? So yeah, so that's kind of where I was when I decided to put the hammer down and schedule an awful aortic aneurysm repair surgery. The
Okay.
full thing, and that was terrifying to me. Um, that was about a week. No, about 3 or 4 days before my actual dissection. So I had this scheduled. I became proactive and I said, okay, let's do this surgery in a month. And I went about my business. I was leaving the house on April 1st and I stepped over the FedEx package, which was all the surgery instructions. And of course, I'm like, I can't deal with this now. And I threw it on
Mm.
my desk
The
and
irony
left.
of that. Mm.
And it fell, guess what? It fell right on top of my folder, which I titled uh, "Get Your Ducks in a Row." So it was my kind of end of life type of get your all your stuff together. So get your ducks in a row folder, and it fell on top of that. And I left the house and didn't come back for another week. So yes, I
Mm.
then proceeded to have an awful experience when it happened. I was in getting out of my car, ironically talking to my friend whose husband draws up wills, and I was going to get a will in order because I was having this surgery. And sure enough, I get out of the car and I had this awful, god awful pain and awful
Yeah.
feeling in my neck that radiated across my chest, and everything just went haywire. I knew immediately without knowing that I was having an aortic dissection. Something told me. Of
So
course,
you knew what an aortic dissection was by that stage.
because that surgeon told me, you don't want to be over the Pacific and have an aortic dissection. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
and then he went on to say, oh, it's different. It's people, not you. It's older men. It's all this. So I really
Yeah.
brushed that, but I must have retained that because I never researched it. I don't recall researching it, I should
Mm.
say. So I don't, but anyway, my body just told me it was dire. As you know, John, it's like, oh boy, this is something big. This is not joking. This is not indigestion. For me, it was not
Mm.
anything other than I got to get that 5 minutes or 5 miles to that hospital. So
Yes, it's interesting that you say that because definitely for me, in the moment it happened, I knew it was catastrophic.
yeah,
I just kind of knew, it just was so out of the, whatever, out of this world, the feeling. Yes, but that's an interesting point about, how primal is that? It's like an animal. We become very animal, I think, at those moments, don't we?
yeah, I think so. I think my body told me what was happening. Honestly, on a
Mm,
cellular level, I think the it, I'll have to tell my story one day, like super formally and with some of these funny details because there were quite some interesting moments. Nothing was funny about it, but my brain kind of split in half, and that side was funny Molly, and that side was like emergent flight attendant. You've got to go. You got to do this. You got to do it.
mm.
This is serious. Get out of that burning airplane type of thing. And I
Do you think
liken
that
it.
served you well in some ways in terms of how you managed what unfolded? The flight attendant emergency training? Do you think that helped you?
Definitely.
Ah,
Definitely. You know why? Because in the past and on the airplane, we've had some incidences, nothing major, but things that you had to hop to and jump to real quick, and you had to be
mm,
boom, Johnny on the spot. You had to get it done, and all of a sudden those procedures come into play and automatically because you've rehearsed them so many times.
yes.
And so when this happened, I knew that it was a serious thing, and I knew I had to get to my friend's house. I had to call 911, all these things, and that's where I believe the trauma of that day began because it became very emergent and focused. and dire. And but I had a job to do. Like I had my job to do, and that was to get me to that 5 minute away hospital. And without consciously thinking that that's what I was doing. So sure enough, I'll skip to it, but I got to call 911, get the OR ready. I'm having an aortic dissection. Get Dr. Tyner. This is what I have for breakfast. This is my blood type. Call this person. My keys are there. I was just boom, boom, boom,
Wow.
and meanwhile, just reeling in pain. It was awful.
I just want to come in there because just an important point to make about for everybody who's maybe listening and may come to listen to this. I'm also interested, as I do, is to keep on getting everyone to kind of check in with how does it feel right now, stepping back from the emotion. And for me, the interesting thing is, as you're telling me the story, I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
I can just feel that kind of vibration in my chest and the emotion and the empathy, and you're taking me back to mine. So how is it for you to be?
Oh, my heart's racing a
It
little
can
bit
be
fast.
difficult for all of us because we have a compulsion sometimes to tell the story, but the telling of the story is often quite stressful in itself.
Absolutely. But yes, and my heart is racing a little bit faster. But the difference between telling it now and 4 years ago, I would
Hmm.
years. I wouldn't. I'd have to shut the computer down and just go curl up in that ball right there.
Right. So that's another important lesson, isn't it? And I would totally support that over time it gets easier. Time does heal.
Yeah, and I've mastered this story. I feel I've mastered it in my mind, and I am telling it a little longer right now, and I'll cut to it. But um, there's so many important points of that day that I retold so many times um, that I it's just it's the essence of it. It's the fiber that made up that day, and
Mm.
where I am now actually. Um, yeah, funny story. The skip after the surgery. Oh, well, first let me just tell you, I'll get to the ER. And after yelling at the poor guy driving that ambulance, telling him to step on it, I didn't have 3 more minutes. We get there and I come through those double doors just blaring, just telling him I'm
So
having
you were
an,
kind of running the hospital by this stage, Molly, yeah?
well, in hindsight, yeah. And yes, I mean, I just came in hot. I came in hot and just
Mm.
I'm having an aortic dissection. Okay, they don't rarely see that anyway. And so for a patient to come in spouting those words, I think he did look at me a little bit harder and more serious, like, okay, she's not just a soccer
Mm.
mom that needs a fix or something. So he determined it right away because I wasn't going to let him. I said, you got it, is the OR prepped? I've been asking to get the OR prepped. I don't know. It just I was on repeat. And I apologized a few times to the staff there because they all were just looking at me with these wide eyes. Everyone is under 30 years old in that ER. My God, that day they all were just so looking at me, and I'm just going nuts. Anyway,
Yeah.
they whisked me through the CT, and that's when I ended up in surgery, and a few other funny things
Mm.
about that. And then I come out of
It
that.
is quite remarkable though for somebody given the issues about it being diagnostically missed many times, certainly first, for someone to self-diagnose so accurately.
Yeah,
Impressive, you know.
he he asked me when this started. He asked me how it felt, how was I feeling now, and I started to panic because I started to see stars. So I knew that.
Mhm.
And the whole ride in the ambulance, I was asking the guys, how do I look? Are my eyes, how are my eyes look? What's my vitals? I know, I was, I was just, and I think that's what kept me going because I was in having pericardial effusion and cardiac tamponade, and I was, I was going downhill. And they,
Mm.
as a testament to that, they had me open within, I think it's 19 minutes, no, 29 minutes of going through those double doors, they opened. So
Wow.
they hopped to it also. I think I was in that
Mm.
bad a shape. Typical 8 hour, 6, 8 hour surgery.
Mm.
Uh,
So we can just, it's not difficult to clarify your behavior there, which is basically born out of, enormous fear and self-protection. So it's a coping mechanism, isn't it? You're gonna, you're afraid, completely understandably. You're afraid of your life, and you're making damn sure that everybody knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what naturally came out of me. And but I also
Mm,
have that personality too.
mm,
I mean, they say 50% of people who are choking, they run and hide, and the other 50 run towards people for help. So I think there's just different people who are wired in a way to deal with
mm, mm.
emergencies like this. And I'm just wired that way. And yes, I
Yes.
wanted to make sure because I didn't know at the time that aortic dissections are missed often. I didn't know any of this stuff that I know now.
Mm,
I just knew I was in dire strait. I knew I was
yeah.
in a yeah, not good. So there we
So here
go.
you are.
Here I am.
You got through it. Yeah.
Yes. And I would say comparatively, I think I had a, well, it was not an easy recovery. And of course, in hindsight, it's easier to say it was fine, but it was probably awful, very awful. It was awful, but without a ton of complications, maybe 4 trips to the ER, things like that.
Mm.
But yeah, yeah, I'm here. I'm
So,
here.
in the initial weeks and things, initial months, what was, and we'll come on to the obvious cliche that it's life changing, but it's important to maybe explore in what ways your life changed. But what were the challenges in the first days, weeks, months, and how have they evolved a little bit?
Well, because I had significant help, I had someone with me for 7 solid weeks, my mom, and attending with her was my entire family. Each sibling took a week or
And they're all
so.
listening in, I hope.
I hope so. Yeah. If not, I'll make them watch it because I do thank them. That's everything to me. Family is everything. I didn't know that. I didn't have to be made aware of that because of this incident. I already knew that about
Hmm.
them. I do have a good family, but boy, I'm glad I mean that so there's 5 of us. So 4 of them came, and when the last one was leaving, I'm like, "Damn, mom," excuse me. "Mom, why didn't you have more kids?" But, you know, that was at about week, uh, 3 and a half, 4, and then my friends, the good dear friends came in and stepped in and helped my mom out.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it was all good. Um, the first week at home was, I was on a lot of medication, and I think that anesthesia was still simmering in there, and
Mm.
I was kind of lobotomized, just kind of not just. I was,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was like the little trick pony, If they told me to go to bed, I went to bed, and everything was just slow. I was very focused on like one teeny thing, which was me.
Mm.
I was uber focused on myself.
So that suggests, that there's the shock. It's the shock is like the wave of a tsunami.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got a lot of medication. You've had major traumatic surgery for your body. Yes. So just run us through some of the things. How was your energy at that time?
Low to none. I mean, I could barely walk I was breathless. They barely released me from the hospital. They did not want to release me with oxygen, so they kept me one extra day. But literally, before they said get out of bed and go home, they pulled off the oxygen. So I think they
Okay.
wanted me out. And for healthy reasons, to stay healthy because hospitals
Mm,
aren't. They wanted me out and home. They thought I'd get a better sleep, and of course, I was clawing and crying to stay because that was my lifeline. It's like, oh no, I'm scared to go home. What's going to happen?
of course you are. Yeah. Yeah.
But I was so well taken care of at home.
Mm.
Very well taken care of, looked out
So,
after, attended to. But it was a very weird time. I slept a lot.
okay.
I slept a lot, and when I could, I started walking. And I'm telling you, at the time, my 86-year-old mom was running circles around me. I mean, I could barely make it. 10 yards. um, but that progressively got better. And as a note to anyone, is too much too fast is not good. So I did think I had it all going on, and I overdid it one day, and it put me right into AFib. So
Mm.
I backed it off, and that's my advice to anyone: is you've got to take it as Jack Crow and Carmen say at Aortic Athletes, little by little by little by little, and just take it real
Yes.
slow because it will come back.
I think one of the difficulties we have there is, we don't know our limits until we go beyond them. So, and it's a difficult balance out, because on the one hand, I remember being told, you know, more steps, more steps, more steps, and building that up and wanting to do that. But then, of course, you don't know how far you can go. And it's, I think, inevitable, that we're going to, as it were, fall over at various points. And that still plays out for me, I find, if I do too much, or, do a workout and, maybe done a bit more than I should, my body lets me know.
Yeah, definitely. I need more recovery time now. Even just walking 4 miles on the beach, although I do think I broke my toe, and so that exasperated. So I was a little bit laid up last night, but I was tired. I just needed to sit down and put my feet up and
Mm.
recuperate after a simple 3.5, 4 mile walk. So things are
Yeah.
different, but
Okay. So low energy. You slept a lot, um, but gradually you could see an improving curve. Could you?
yes, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And how
I
did that
took a
make you feel then? Tell us a bit about your emotional state and how that was
you
influenced by your physical state.
I think I was a little bit of a wreck for a long time, honestly. I think it was that proverbial 1 year mark that I
Hmm.
could see the ceiling of the clouds. I knew that there was something above it better. So at least I could acknowledge that there was something, poking my head through. I could see above the clouds. I wasn't there yet, but at least I could acknowledge that it was there. Because in the first year was really difficult. First year was very difficult.
Mm.
Um,
So can you be a bit more specific for us there? What
well,
examples of that?
Well, I was learning anytime I went to the doctor, which was pretty frequent in that first year for sure. It was like every couple weeks or month or 3 months. And so every time I was going, I would learn a little bit more about what happened. I mean, it was at some point that I realized that really what the dissection was and what it looked like. I mean, I was looking at when I went in for the AFib, I was looking at a monitor, and I'm like, that's a cool screensaver. And she said, "That's your aorta." And I'm like, "Why is it two different
Mm.
colors? Why is it two different colors?" And she's like, "That's your dissection." That's the first time I had seen it, and that was about, within the month.
Yes.
And I could see me, and that was it. It was all in color, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, look
Yeah,
where it."
it's like, talk about selfies and self-portraits under the skin. Yeah.
So I maybe seeing that made me retreat a little bit, like, "Oh gosh, I don't know if I need to know. I don't want to know this. What happened to me? What's going to happen?" And very fearful times. I continue. Oh, so I started cardiac rehab 2 months after the day, so June 1st, and that was a godsend because I felt coddled there. They were really keeping an eye on me. I was fortunate enough to do 2 rounds of cardiac rehab because
Hmm.
after the first initial 36 visits, I didn't feel like where I should be, and they said, "Nope, okay, go again." And that's actually where I
Okay.
continue to work out today because I like it there. I like the people, and I like the
Mm.
fact that it's anything can happen, and there they all are, all
Yeah, I
trained.
imagine you feel quite safe there. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a
So,
difficult, but it gradually got better. I mean, I would say it got better in almost yearly increment, and then maybe 6 month increment, and then it got a little better as time went on. Time heals. That's the
mm, mm.
cliche mo- motto that people say, and I believe in it. Time heals a lot.
So if we sort of roll forward a bit more then to now, um, this sort of question of it being life changing. Can you guide us through some of the ways in which you feel it's, I mean, it's an obvious statement, isn't it? Of course it's life changing, but it may be useful for people to know ways that it's been life changing for you, but maybe the good with the bad.
Yeah, I think, well, for one thing, it took me out of work. So I couldn't go to work, which was a very busy job. I mean, I work sometimes 3, 4, 5 long haul trips a month, always
Hmm.
gone, always on the go, hitting the ground running. I mean, there's no stopping me. I was just, going. And so that came to a screeching halt. And I didn't miss it, obviously, because I felt like I needed to recover and I couldn't work for, still, it's hard. It changed because, well, that stopped. My lifestyle changed. In addition, I had just moved into a new place a couple weeks before my dissection, so there were still boxes here. So that was different. So a lot of things changed in that I just had to readjust and slow it all down. So
Okay.
everything came to a screeching halt. I had no desire to to communicate, socialize, talk on the phone. It was my family that I was interested in having around, and I was able to go out and about with them when they were here in that first 7 weeks. But it wore me out, obviously. But when they left, that's when I think everything really got super dark because I was alone and
Mm.
every I didn't know what was going to happen. And that's when I started feeling those effects of PTS where, you know, I thought bad things were going to happen every other second. And that was tough to muscle through. Thank goodness I had a rational mind that said that don't be foolish. That's not going to happen. An airplane's not going to be crashing through your living room window today. It still felt like that. So I knew there was something. And there were also um, moments of, if I heard an ambulance, my knees would buckle and I'd fall to the ground, that kind of stuff. So I knew that was happening. But I tried so hard to get normal and just be normal. So went to the grocery store. I didn't order out, and I did things. It was just at a slower pace. Um, and less frequent. Exercise was my job. I made that my job.
Mm.
And
So you were a very active person before this. You had this sort of excuse the pun, high flying job, running around, and then everything kind of comes to a screeching halt. Do you think, in some ways, with it wrapped into the PTSD, is a kind of grieving for a person that you've had to let go of?
well, I mean, I like my job a lot. I mean, do I love it? It's a hard job. So no, I was fine with not working. I was perfectly fine with not working. I knew it was impossible for me to work. So it wasn't like, oh, maybe I can try or so
Mm.
I didn't miss it. Actually at all. I had been doing it for so long and I was good with that. I think in the ways that this situation changed me was um it helped me refocus things and this is cliche too, but it made me realize what's really important. I know what's important, but it really drove the focus down and I mean, that is friends. I mean, a
Mm.
fewer group of friends, a smaller group of friends, not the big social circles that I have had. Family and, those few core friends. That was the most important. So it made me refocus that and slowed me down. I didn't have the yearnings to go and flit off here and fly there and what else did it do? It helped to make me I would say ultimately just slow it down. And then I found
Mm.
the aortic hope.
So
Probably,
do you now see that as a positive thing? Because in our society we're very set up to like go go go, aren't we? You've got to be productive, you've got to be doing things, you've got to be achieving, and then this is suddenly forced on you. As how is this Molly now?
I like it because I don't know. I like a slower life. I like a really
Hmm.
simple, slow, not always, catching up. And I don't know. I like this slower version. It's more focused on, more important things and not like five
Yeah.
things in one day. It's one good thing in one day. I enjoy that. And I like being home early afternoon, like sometimes, 3 or 4 or 5 and jamming
Hmm.
up and just ease into the evening, get a good.
Jamming up, that's not having a sandwich with jam on it? I mean, is that putting your pajamas on?
That's what you would do with tea.
Okay, but
Jammies
I'm
are
right about that. That's American for pajamas,
jammies.
yeah? Jamming
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
Got it. You
comfortable
don't
clothes.
not your guitar or anything like that. Okay.
It's just my jammies. And ease into the night and have a nice
Yeah.
dinner, that kind of
So
stuff.
could we say there that when we're going very fast in our jobs, we're often like not very in the moment. Do you think you live more the day now?
For sure. For sure. For sure. And there was a point in time in the early days I couldn't think beyond the minute. I couldn't. I definitely couldn't think of more than one thing at once. It was one or nothing. That's it. And then it became that I didn't want to. It just slowed me down. Everything just slowed down.
Okay. So what are some of the other things that this experience has taught you then? It's taught you to maybe live more in the day. Anything else?
Live more in the day, and I was really grateful to find Aortic Hope. That was a godsend. When I
Hmm.
did the core group here with me, looking out after me, I found this group and I didn't realize they were out there. And Karen's done a phenomenal job with Aortic Hope. And to be fair, I did reach out to John Ritter. I reached because that's who I knew had this. And
Yeah.
there wasn't really anything to so when I to help me. So I did discover Aortic Hope, and that's where I saw the support group, and that's where I started showing up, and it was the best. It was the best to meet people with the same, similar, or exact condition and not feel alone. And you can share those without even talking about it. You just know what they went through.
So
And
so is there a kind of, again, there's can be safety and liberty in that, can't there?
well, yeah, for sure, because I mean, they know without
Yeah.
me telling them. They know. You know, John, you know exactly how that felt that first week at home. You know exactly how that first year felt and those fears that just come up and you don't know when it's going to come out of nowhere again because anything
Mm,
that gets you like that, it does some damage. It's makes you
yes.
a little jittery, skittish.
I know exactly what you mean about that, people with a similar condition, because it's about being, it's a different kind of soul match, isn't it? It's like we can feel met, and it doesn't necessarily even need language. It can be we just bond.
Yes.
I mean,
And
and I think that happens in many areas of life. It happens to soldiers in warfare. They've been through that experience and they know.
they
And that's why some of them get so furious when they, understandably, when they feel they're being denigrated or something or whatever.
cast aside.
Hmm.
Yeah, I found that whenever I run into somebody, usually a medical professional, who gets wind of the fact that I've had an aortic dissection. It's like, what? And you're here? Their reaction, because they're in the know, they understand and they validate the whole thing for me. And I find a lot of satisfaction with that response. So, with that, talking to other people in the aortic hope community, it just feels good that they understand, that they
Hmm.
know. And
Yes.
recently, a family member um, had open. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But she had a mitral valve replacement situation, but she had the heart lung machine. Anyway, she went through what she went through fine, and she's great now. But she called me and said, "I thought I knew. I thought I understood what you went through."
Hmm.
But now I really know, and you had it 10 times worth. And just hearing her say that was so nice because
Yeah. Yeah.
he got it. I am sad that she had to understand it, but it was really nice to have that validation that
Mm.
Because, there's
Well,
sometimes where,
people on the outside, as it were, don't see, do they? Because it's such an individual experience to go through and so specific.
right.
Yeah.
And, and I don't feel like I need it. I don't need that anymore. I have the validation. I have the friends now that
Mm.
stand, and I'm feeling good. So I feel that that's not as important for me anymore. It was in the beginning though, for sure.
Mm. The only thing I wouldn't necessarily be on the same page with you there is when people do that thing of saying, or an expert says, you had that and you're here. I once was talking to someone on an airplane who was a medical professional. They just couldn't believe it. And I'm a bit uncomfortable with that because I don't kind of know what to do with myself in those moments. It's almost like, should I apologize or something? Or,
Uh,
you know,
I feel like a
have
wimp.
I overstayed my welcome or something?
I do the opposite. I feel like a winner. I feel like I won, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Congratulations, that's impressive. You came the impossible."
Mm.
And it could be luck, it could be fate, it could have been what it was. It could have been that I fought so hard that day to let everyone know I was having an aortic dissection, and it got me on the fast track. Maybe that was it. And it and they actually did say, oh, this can I tell this little story? So in
You
my
have the floor.
this was funny because I was in ICU, totally out of it. And the ICU nurse was like, "What's going on?" To my friend who was there visiting. "What's going on? Why are all these people coming up like looky-loos coming up from the ER department? We never get people up here from the ER department." And the one gal from the ER department turned and looked at him and said, "I wanted to see, I wanted to see again for myself that she's, here and alive. This one right here saved her own life and has renewed my faith in emergency medicine. She's a badass," is what she said. And that's where that
That's
kind
very
of,
moving to hear that.
and he was like incredulous. He was like, they never come up. I mean, they never come up to see, what happened, what they did to help save this person's life. And
Mm.
that, and
Yeah, it must
hearing
be quite weird for them in a way, isn't it? Because they kind of a lot of the time they just hand the person on, don't they?
Yeah, and unfortunately in this situation, a lot of times there's nothing to hand on. And that's another thing I've learned and talked
Mm.
to medical professionals that, I mean, for example, my sister went to the cardiologist because think aorta, think family. I had my entire family go and get tested, and everyone's fine. But she was talking to a nice cardiologist, and she told him, "Yeah, I'm here because my sister had an aortic dissection, type A aortic dissection." And he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss."
Oof.
And she
Mm.
said, "Oh no, she's still here." So, I mean, there's just these little things that
And you
now,
popped your head round the door or something.
yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
proud of that. I'm proud to be that person. I'm sorry for the ones that didn't make it. But I think the more as we go on and start educating and pushing this Think Aorta, Think Family campaign and get the word out there and help fellow people who are suffering aortic disease,
Mm.
the better the word gets out. And that's why
Yeah.
that silly thing about the share button, notifications, and share and like button that Joshua has you do. There's a reason for that. You share that, and it starts going, and it's going to touch somebody who's affected by
Mm.
this.
Okay.
So you
I
have
just want to I just want to come in there, popping on my glasses so I can see the time. Um, just to check in with Joshua, whether there are any comments or anybody wants to ask any questions of Molly before we maybe move on. I just wanted to ask you a couple of
We've
specifics
got a
about
little bit of chat.
PTSD. Sorry?
We've got a little bit of chat. Hi
Okay.
Natalie. Hi Tom. Hi Velda. You kind of answered this question. Who was your support people in the beginning? You said your mom and family.
and
Do you deal with aortic problems every day, or do you schedule a time to review your situation?
well, I know it's always there. but I feel good. I do what's asked of me, take medicine, exercise, eat healthy, watch out after myself. So I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. I do my regular checkups. I talk to my doctor if I have a question. So I think I check in as needed, really. It's not a daily thing. Thank goodness anymore. It used to be every second, every step I took, I was aware of what happened. It was awful to live like that. And now it's more like, okay, I'm doing okay. And
Mm.
it doesn't
Right. So
hit.
straight away we can switch that. They're from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, to post-traumatic growth,
Yes.
and we can grow and become more resilient and become stronger. But we do have to put the work in, and that is about movement, exercise, not overdoing the exercise, ideal things like swimming, good diet, being careful not to work on the mental resilience of pushing away those negative and catastrophic thoughts.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And
Sorry,
so,
Joshua, any more there?
and so Natalie says, so true. We discover our new limits once we go over them. Then we learn and start to adjust. And she put a little accent mark over her laughing. She went, hee hee. Easier said than done.
Yeah,
Natalie.
totally.
Natalie's.
Back to you, John.
That's
Okay, so if anybody else is out there and they want to ask some questions, tap away now. We just spend a little bit of time on, what is labeled as PTSD. I know you've had some issues with that, and would you like to, only if you're comfortable, to share some of them with us, and how maybe those have eased?
Okay, I'll go backwards. I think it has eased due to time. I think time healed, but I also did the work. I did the work. I ignored it because I'm pretty strong-willed and stuff, but I did recognize my disability and my limits. So it was not hard for me to ask for help, accept help. So I did that. But when it came to the mental stuff, the collapsing when an ambulance goes by, or still worrying about that airplane coming through the window here, loud noises, things like that. I had just enough, or someone was going to come in and stab me to death in my bed, sleeping at night. Awful things I would think of, and I knew they were irrational. I knew they were happening. But
and you didn't have those thoughts before this?
No, not even close. Never. So I knew the irrational. I push the rational part. That's not going to happen. Calm down. So I did. But then, about 2 years into it, I thought everything was hunky dory and I was good to go. So I booked a trip to go visit friends down under. It's going to be a 2-week trip, best friends. And I knew I'd be well taken care of and looked out after. Everything was good. Everything was good. Everything was perfectly planned, and I knew I was in good hands. I had a nice seat to fly over there with, a nice business class seat, etc. And I was packed and ready to go. Literally, the bag was zipped up next to the door, and I did my last minute, take a quick get ready, and I fell apart. I just completely melted, had a meltdown, uncontrollable. And that's what came to find out was basically a anxiety panic attack rolled into one. And I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. I didn't feel the signs of it. I was like, oh God, look, going to be early to the airport and everything. Hey, I'll see you in an hour. That kind of stuff. It just was lost on me. But my body knew different. And this is something you might know about, John. Obviously, you will know about, is my mind was real strong, but my body said, you're not ready yet. This isn't going to go well. And I made the hard decision to stay home and not travel. And it was interesting because thank goodness for our little Aortic Hope community and our little group that one of the members said, now, Molly, it's called PTSD. And it's about time you look at it like that and you treat it like that and maybe talk to somebody. And so I did, and it worked out. And I think given the tools and time and being aware of it and acknowledging that, you're not the only one, all those things help to get through it. And so while I'm real jittery I get frightened easy. If someone walks, in front of me, but I'm okay. But the bad, scary stuff is over with. I don't have those
Yes.
anymore.
I mean, given that PTSD used to be, the recognition of the condition came out of the First World War when it was called shell shock, which my grandfather had. A classic symptom of shell shock is an inability to tolerate noise of any kind.
Yeah.
So you can see why post this condition, I know exactly what you mean. I remember not so long after, after mine, about 3 months, I went to see the new Bond film in the cinema, Dolby surround and all this stuff, and I just couldn't tolerate the sound. So yeah, one of the ways that I would approach what you described about the panic and anxiety attack is, I think it's quite a useful analogy to think about what happened to us is kind of like an earthquake. Yes, and we sort of measure it on the Richter scale. The tectonic plates of our body go like that. And as people probably know, with our earthquakes, you get aftershocks, and they're completely unpredictable. And that's, I think, what happens in our body. It's still processing that, and it ambushes you with an aftershock.
I like that analogy. I like that. It makes a lot of sense.
And it's about also, by making that comparison, it's about coming back to the fact that, I'm sorry, but we are mammals, we are all connected to this. It is like, why do other animals apart from us know when an earthquake is coming? They do,
Yeah.
And that's, I talked last week about that book, The Body Keeps the Score. It's like the body knows, and we can do all of the meditation and all of the mental work and all of the self-coaching, but sometimes at the end of the day, the body will dictate.
I mean, I didn't know ahead of time, for instance, but when it did happen, my body knew what it was and told me somehow. I can't explain it, but for me to start spouting out the word aortic dissection was really foreign to me. So it was odd. It is interesting how the body does know.
I fear we might be running out of time. Yeah. Oh, 8 minutes left, haven't we?
I could talk all day long.
So I'm going to ask you about basic things which I know a lot of people struggle with. I mean, do you still get pain?
No.
You don't. That must be confidence building in itself.
Yes. In fact, I have very little, if any, residual effects. Just a little fatigue, limited on how far I can exercise, stuff like that. Medication.
So you don't get any kind of muscle spasms or aches or odd things like pulls on the scar or something? Nothing like that? Nothing
at all. I'm very fortunate, and I empathize with those people who have that, because that's scary too, to have a pain in a very sensitive spot.
Yeah, well, they can come out of nowhere again, like mini aftershocks again. Yes. So are there occasional bad days which come out of the blue?
No, not for no reason. If there's a bad day, it's just, life type of thing. But regarding this situation, does it give me bad days? No. I can honestly say no. I have my annual scan coming up in the middle of May. That's, as we know, that's always a little stress inducing. I try not to give into that stress and think about it, because it is what it is. I'll be fine. I have a lot of confidence in my body and what I've done to keep it healthy. So
but it's not easy, is it? It's all about anticipation.
Well, yeah, that what if? Oh gosh, what if? And oh no, got to roll the carpet back, oh God, start over. Those things, yes. But I mean, that's natural, and that's
entirely human, entirely understandable. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And energy levels, Molly?
I have moderate to good energy level, or normal, near normal for sure. I peter out or easy. So heat gets me. Um, I like walking. I like walking at the wild animal park. It's real hilly and it's obviously great scenery. In the heat, I'm done. After that 3 miles of walking, I am in the car just going, oh my God. And that's it for me. So I tire out easily.
Mm,
But I would say I have next to near normal energy levels.
okay. But you
Yeah.
wouldn't be like, I'm guessing, signing up to climb the Half Dome in Yosemite, or
As
might you?
much as much as I'd like to, I actually attempted that once.
Oh,
Um,
oh, you did. You
and
attempted, huh?
I hiked the whole thing up, and then we got to the incline, and because I was concerned about my climbing partner, I kept turning around because he was afraid of heights and I wasn't. I was just "Woot, woot, woot, let's
Mm,
go, this is fun." And I think when I kept going like that, it did it got vertigo going, and I just, oh God, so I
yeah.
didn't make it up. But no, I hills are hard. Hills are harder. I have to work
Mm,
towards those.
for me
And
too.
because
Yeah.
I got a little touch of plantar fasciitis, which I think is healed, I can start the hills again, but I need to take it slow. But yes, major events like I'm not going to windsurf anymore. I'm not going to surf anymore. No more snowboarding. I mean, I haven't even picked up a
So
tennis.
why would that be then that you wouldn't do that? Just because you don't want to push your blood pressure, which it would do because you're using a lot of body work and things, or or because you find it very tiring, or just afraid?
Well, for one thing, great white sharks have been seen off the beach here in Del Mar. So I mean, I don't like sharks.
That's your excuse then.
I do have a good, I mean, that is my excuse. I could probably go out and paddle out, but I really don't want, because you wipe out hard in surfing and windsurfing and snowboarding. So
Mm.
I don't want to risk that hard impact because as they say, no contact sports,
Yeah,
really.
that whack on the water is like the same with skiing.
Yeah.
Mm.
And out of shape with it. So I don't want to, I don't need to. Been there, done that. I did that for years. I've enjoyed it for years. It's kind of like travel. I've done that for the last 35 years, a lot. And do I have that ping to have to, oh, you know, not really. Been there, done that. I enjoyed it. And so I feel fortunate, scuba diving, I'm not going to scuba dive anymore. Probably
Mm.
snorkel, but scuba dive, I don't want to push it. I don't want to put myself into a position of danger or emergency.
Mm.
Um, I don't want to be too remote. The idea of, I was thinking, I've always wanted on my bucket list has been an African safari.
Okay.
And I think about that and I
So
think,
could
wow,
that be an aortic hope holiday trip? We all go on safari.
let's
That
do
could be
it.
fun.
Yeah, I really want to go to Africa. It's one place I haven't been. So
Hmm.
uh, anyway, I'm not afraid. I just am being smart. I'm being
So I'm
smart.
looking at the clock again. Sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
we are running out of time here. Um,
Uh,
so Joshua, just back to you. Anybody come in with anything?
Velda says, "Hey Molly, nice work. Thanks."
Thank you, Velda.
Back to you,
And
John.
Natalie.
So, well, just to kind of summarize, it's been great having you on with us,
Thank you.
um, to share your experience. You sound very like you made a really positive journey and that you're really resilient, and it's not been easy, but I admire your spirit
Thank you.
and your stoicism. I think we do, as I've said before in these sessions, we're not going to change anything. It has happened. So sometimes some stoicism is useful and gets us through. And you seem to
I
have a very, very positive attitude, which is not to now make people who don't feel so positive out there feel guilty, but it's who you are, isn't it?
it's an individual journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So sorry. Okay.
I was going to say, I really enjoy volunteering for Aortic Hope. It's brought a lot of meaning to what I've went through, and I can apply it to help others. And that part has been very important to me. So I'm real happy to be part of this organization.
Thank you for joining me. It's been a real pleasure. And again, I'm got to remind everybody to click like and subscribe, please. Get the t-shirt. Okay. I think that's an ending, is it, Joshua?
I like it. Let's close out.
All right. Thank you
for
again.
listening, everybody, and for the questions. I hope it was helpful to people. Have a good the rest of your day.
Toodles.